In the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His mind was troubled and could not sleep. So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king, he said to them,
I have had dreams that trouble me, and I want to know what it means.
Then the astrologers answered the king,
May the king live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it.
The king replied to the astrologers,
This is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses turned into piles of rubble. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me.
Once more they replied,
Let the king tell the servants the dream, and we will interpret it.
Then the king answered,
I am certain that you are trying to gain time, because you realize that this is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there is only one penalty for you. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then, tell me the dream, and I'll know that you can interpret it for me.
The astrologers answered the king,
There is no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician, an enchanter, or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods. And they do not live among humans.
This made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer,
Why did the king issue such a harsh decree?
Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went into the king and asked for time that he might interpret the dream for him. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. He urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said,
Praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and power. You have made known to me what we asked of you. You have made known to us the dream of the king.
Will this assignment be good enough? Will I get a good job? Will my friends stick by me? Will I ever find someone to marry? Will I be able to buy a house one day? Will my kids be bullied at school? Will I get cancer? Will I have enough to retire comfortably? Will I be lonely in old age? These are life's mysteries, the things that we can't know, the things that we want to know, the things that we worry about, life's mysteries. Life's mysteries make us anxious. We stress about the present, we worry about the future. You and I live at a time when people generally are more anxious than they have been in previous stages of history. That's what studies have shown, and that was even before COVID. So since COVID, study after study is showing that right across the board, our anxiety levels as a society have gone up. If I go to the supermarket today, will I catch COVID? How long will the lockdown last? Will I still have a job at the end of it? When will I be able to see my family again? If my grandpa dies, will I be able to go to his funeral? At the moment, the people of Sydney, we have the almost daily anxiety cycle as we await the 11 o'clock announcements. What will the case numbers be today? What will Gladys let us do? These are life's mysteries, the things we think about, we want to know, the things we worry about, things that make us anxious. And I'm speaking to you today who knows very well what it is to worry, what it is to be anxious, what it is to lay awake at night worrying about life's mysteries. Sometimes I think that we try to soothe our anxieties by seeking to discover life's mysteries. If we're trying to understand the mysteries of the stock market, we consult financial experts. If it's the housing market, we consult housing experts. If it's the pandemic, we consult the new stars of the news cycle, epidemiologists. We reach out to these people. We're hoping that they might reveal life's mysteries to us, that once we're armed with that knowledge, we might be able to exercise some degree of control over our lives. We're hoping that they will ease our anxieties. But none of them can perfectly predict our future for us. None of them can reliably reveal life's mysteries to us. You and I, we can't know the future. We can't control the future. And so we're left where we're started, anxious, worrying. And I know, and I want to acknowledge when I speak on this topic, that for some of us, this problem of worry, this problem of anxiety is especially hard. It's especially acute. For some of us, we've sought professional help for this and continue to do so. I want to acknowledge that, but I also want to say that for all of us, to some degree or another, for all of us, we experience this problem of worry, this problem of being anxious. And it's not a good problem to have. It's a dangerous problem to have, because as long as we have this problem of worry, of anxiety, there's a danger that you and I are going to seek unhealthy solutions to the problem. Destructive solutions. Maybe it'll be the escapism of too much alcohol or binge eating or binge watching. Maybe it'll be the false solutions of idolized relationships or money. It's a dangerous problem, not a safe problem for us to have. Daniel 2 addresses this problem of worry. It's a text about worry. It was written to a group of people, the exiled Israelites, who were suffering and who were anxious, who were worried. They're being ruled by people who don't know Yahweh, don't serve Yahweh, and life is hard for them. They probably remember stories of all the blessing and shalom that God promised them, and that all seems so far off right now. And they're probably wondering, will this ever be a reality again? Will they ever be returned to the land again? Will they ever be returned to worshipping Yahweh in his temple again? Life's mysteries. They're wondering about it. They're worrying about it. So Daniel 2 is written to a group of people who are anxious. But not only that, it's a story about a man who is anxious. King Nebuchadnezzar. He's this great and powerful king. His every need and want is met. But he's worried. He's worried because he's had a dream. And it's a dream which, according to verse 1, is troubling him so much that he can't sleep. Just think about that. Nebuchadnezzar, this great king, he's a successful general. He's already conquered nations. He's now the most powerful king in the world at the time, and yet he's so anxious that he can't sleep. Why? Why is he so anxious? Well, he's had this dream, and in this dream he saw a huge statue of a man. And then he saw a stone roll down the hill and smash the statue into powder until it was blown away and there was nothing left of it. And then the stone became a huge mountain which fills the earth. You see, Nebuchadnezzar is so anxious because he senses that there's a divine message in this dream. After all, that's what Babylonians believe, that the God spoke to them through dreams. He senses that there's a divine message here. He knows there's a divine message here. And he's worried about what it means. Is he the statue? Is there an enemy nation which is about to crush him? Or is there an assassin from within his court who's going to knock him off? The most powerful man on earth is so anxious that he can't sleep. He's doing what we humans do. He's worrying. So in Daniel 2, we've got this text who's written to a people, the Israelites, who are anxious about a king who is anxious, and it has a very powerful message to all of us, you and I, if we are anxious. And the message is all about what God does to soothe our anxious souls. So let's have a look at it now and see what it is. If you haven't already, please open up to Daniel chapter 2. So the question we're bringing to the text today is, how does God soothe our anxious souls? How does God soothe our anxious souls? We're going to find two answers to that question today as we work our way through Daniel chapter 2. And the first one is this: He reveals. God soothes our anxious souls by revealing life's mysteries to us. As we saw before, sometimes our tactic to ease our anxieties is to consult our experts, the financial advisors or the epidemiologists, hoping to discover life's mysteries and ease our anxiety. That's one of our tactics. And that's exactly what King Nebuchadnezzar does here in this story, isn't it? He consults the experts of his days. Verse 2, the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers. He calls for them to tell him his dream and to tell him what it means. He's doing that because he's hoping that they will be able to ease his anxieties and worries. So verse 3, he says, I've had this troubling dream and I want to know what it means. And verse 4, they say, well, tell us the dream and we'll tell you what it means. By the way, that is the normal way it would work in Babylon at the time. A person would tell the dream and then the wise man would interpret it. But on this occasion, Nebuchadnezzar says no to that. He says, no, you tell me what I dreamt first. In fact, if you don't, I'll cut you into pieces. Nebuchadnezzar is so worried about his dream, he's so worried about what it might mean for his future, that he wants to set up a test of his wise men on this occasion to make sure that what they say really is a revelation, a true revelation of life's mysteries. So he starts with this policy. He says, you start by telling me what I dreamt first. But of course, the wise men can't do this, can they? Verse 7, they say, oh, king, you tell us the dream and then we'll interpret it. And the king won't budge. Verse 9, he says, no, you tell me the dream first so that I can know that your interpretation later is a true one. Tell me or you die. So the problem for the wise men, of course, is that even though they market themselves as the revealers of mysteries, as the ones with insight and wisdom, as the experts, they can't actually do what Nebuchadnezzar is asking of them. They can't do it. And so in verse 10, the astrologers answered the king. Have a look at verse 10. They said, there is no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods, and they do not live among humans. So the anxious King Nebuchadnezzar has gone to his wise men for help, and they have failed. In this group of people, we have the best of the best. These are the king's wise men, the best magicians, the best enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers in the whole land. And what are they doing? They're flying the white flag. We can't do it. It's too hard. We give up. Only the gods could do that. And they're not here. They're not accessible to us. They don't live amongst us. These are really key verses, verses 10 and 11. In these verses, out of the mouths of the astrologers, we have the problem in this text. Accessing life's mysteries is beyond us humans. It's too hard. We can't do it. We're in the dark. We would need divine help for that. And as far as the Babylonian astrologer is concerned, divine help for this is not available to us. The gods are distant and accessible. They don't live amongst us. Well, Nebuchadnezzar, he flies into a rage at this, doesn't he? Verse 12. He orders the execution of all the wise men in Babylon. And you recall from last week, from Daniel chapter 1, that Daniel himself and his friends have graduated as Babylonian wise men. And so in verse 13, men are sent to find and execute Daniel as well. So Daniel's life is in danger too. What does Daniel do? Well, he prays with his friends for God to reveal the mystery. Have a look at verse 18. He, Daniel, urged them, his three friends, to plead for mercy from God, from the God of heaven, concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed. So Nebuchadnezzar, he took the problem to his wise men and they failed. Daniel, he takes the problem to the God of heaven. And the God of heaven hears and responds. Verse 19, during the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. God is able to reveal life's mysteries. The things that keep us up at night, the things that we worry about, God knows them. God is able to reveal them. The Babylonian wise men, they can't, but there is one who can, the God of heaven. And so Daniel responds with praise. Verse 20. Praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises others up. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. Verse 22, he reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells in him. Our question is, how does God soothe anxious souls? The answer, he reveals. He reveals deep and hidden things. He reveals life's mysteries. We humans don't know them, but God does. He knows what lies in darkness, the things that are inaccessible to us. He knows them. And when it pleases him, he reveals them. The Babylonian wise men, they spent their lives scrambling to discover life's mysteries, trying to divine them, trying to discern them, trying to read signs and dreams. They were bumbling in the dark, but God knows life's mysteries. And here, he chooses to reveal them. What we have here is revelation as opposed to divination. Revelation from the God of heaven, the one who knows. How does God soothe our anxious souls? He reveals life's mysteries to us. And so you and I, we don't need to grope in the dark for answers. We can listen to the God who knows and reveals. And the fact that the God of heaven, who knows, should reveal mysteries to us humans is just so wonderful that Daniel responds in thanks, doesn't he? Verse 23, he thanks God. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and power. You've made known to me what we asked of you. You've made known to us the dream of the king. God reveals. We listen. And we thank him. So the next thing that happens in the story is that Daniel gets taken along to the king. Now we're going beyond where we read before, where our wonderful Wally team read for us before. So we're going into the second part of Daniel chapter 2 now. Daniel gets taken to the king. And I want you just to notice how careful he is to make it clear that the information that he's bringing is revelation from God and not divination from Daniel. So in verse 26, the king says, are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream? Notice that Daniel doesn't just say, well, as a matter of fact, I can. See, if he did that, it might give the impression that he's just a better wise man than the others, that it's his wisdom, that it's the Babylonian education system, that we can access life's mysteries by going to wise men. Notice the way he puts it, verse 27. Daniel says, no wise man, enchanter, magician or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. The wise men can't help you. Don't look that way. Look up. Look to heaven. There is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. If we're worried about our life, if we're anxious about the future, if we're stressed about what lies ahead for us, we need to turn to God for revelation, not to humans for divination. God reveals life's mysteries. God reveals that which we really need to know. Now I want us just to jump forward for a moment, right to the very end of the passage. Verse 47. By this stage, Daniel has shared the contents of the dream, he's given the interpretation, and in verse 47, King Nebuchadnezzar responds. And as he responds to it all, he actually gives us a beautiful summary of this message that we're seeing here. Verse 47. He says, surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings, and, here it is, a revealer of mysteries. God reveals life's mysteries. We humans, we can't work it out for ourselves. We can't divine it. Human wisdom falls short, but God knows. And when it pleases him, he reveals. So what do, you and I? We look to him for revelation. Now, I do want to say that this doesn't mean that we will never consult the wise men and women of our age, the experts, the economists, the epidemiologists. But we don't go to them to soothe our anxieties. We don't go to them hoping that they will resolve our deepest worries by revealing life's most important mysteries to us. We don't make them, the experts of our day, what they cannot be. God substitutes. We don't make them that. Instead, we go to God and we listen to his revelation to us. And in saying this, I want to be clear what I mean by revelation. I don't think there's any promise in this text that God will give us a special revelation like he does to Daniel every time we want to know something. We need to remember the context of what's going on here. Back in chapter 1, God gives Daniel a special gift for a special purpose, the gift of understanding dreams. That's the gift he's using here. He doesn't give that to Daniel's 3 friends who are also behaving in a very godly, undefiled way. He gives it to Daniel for a special purpose. So Daniel's experience here isn't presented as a model for all every time we want to know something. So the message of this text to the Israelites, to us, is not God will give us special revelations each week when we ask. The message is that God is a revealer of mysteries. So we need to listen to his revelation. And you and I need to have our Bibles open. We need to read what it is he reveals to us in his word. Okay, so our question today is, how does God soothe our anxious souls? And we've seen the first of the 2 answers that we're going to find in the text today already. He reveals. He reveals life's mysteries. That's the first answer. Now it's time for the second. The second answer is this. He rules. He rules. In the second half of the narrative, Daniel tells the king his dream and he interprets it for him. And the message of the dream is that God rules. And it's a message that the anxious Israelites needed to hear. And it's a message that anxious you and I also need to hear. Let's have a look at it now. The dream itself is quite simple. You recall we've got this great statue, head of gold, chest of silver, thighs of bronze and legs of iron, and the feet partly iron, partly clay. So we've got this statue, and then we've got this rock. And the rock strikes the statue, breaks the whole thing to pieces, that gets blown away. What remains is this rock which grows into this huge mountain and fills the earth. That's the dream. What does it mean? Well, starting in verse 36, Daniel interprets the dream. He says, "You, O king, you are that head of gold." And I reckon Nebuchadnezzar would have been pretty happy to hear this. He's the gold, the most precious part of the statue. God has given him power over everything and everyone. He's on top of the world right now. He's the gold. But Daniel keeps going. "After you will arise another kingdom. Inferior, but still mighty. This one's of silver. Precious, but not as precious as the gold. And then after that, a third kingdom, more inferior still, bronze. And after that, a fourth one. And this one is going to be strong as iron. But its feet, partly iron, partly clay, mean it's partly strong, partly brittle." Now, at this point, we could stop and try to work out which empires the different parts of the statue represent. We know the gold is Babylon, but what about the others? Silver, bronze, iron. Is it Persia? Is it Greece? Is it Rome? We could stop and talk about that and try to match those up now. But I don't think that's what Nebuchadnezzar was meant to do when he heard the dream, and I don't think that's what the author wanted his original Israelite hearers to do when they read the text. See, from our vantage point looking back, it's very tempting to try to do this, to try to line things up. But I want us to think about it from the perspective of Nebuchadnezzar as he heard the dream. I want us to think about it from the perspective of the Israelites as they heard this text. See, when they heard about a succession of kingdoms that would be to come, what's most important would not be which kingdoms would they be, which nations would they be. What was most important would be the fact that these human kingdoms just keep coming. They just keep rising and falling. See, that's the point. None of them are going to last. Babylon is not going to last, according to this dream. The kingdoms that replace Babylon also won't last. They're all human-made. They're all time-limited kingdoms. They're represented by this statue. It's a human-made thing, a statue, and it's in the shape of a human. It represents human-made kingdoms, and none of them are going to last forever. In fact, according to the dream, they'll be destroyed by this non-human-made rock, the rock that was not of human hands, according to verse 34. And the climax comes in verse 44. Have a look at that. "In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself endure forever." So here we have the message of this dream. God rules. God rules over all human kingdoms. See, right now, he's expressing that rule by verse 21, we saw in the prayer, deposing kings and raising others up. That's how he's expressing that rule right now. But one day he will express that rule by establishing his perfect kingdom. That's the wonderful news of verse 44. God's perfect kingdom is on its way. All human kingdoms will end. Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, America, China, whatever it may be. They will all end. The time of their rule, of their authority, it's limited. It has an end point. But a time is coming, according to this dream. Time is coming when God will set up his eternal kingdom, his everlasting kingdom, his perfect kingdom, one that will never be destroyed. God's kingdom is on its way. And just imagine for a moment what a wonderful comfort this would have been to the Israelites as they suffered in exile, far from the promised land, oppressed by a foreign power. What a comfort it would have been to them. What an answer to their stress and their worry and their anxiety with this message that God rules and his kingdom is on its way. Babylon won't last. Whatever comes after Babylon won't last. God's kingdom is on its way. It will fill the whole earth. It will last forever. What a comfort this would have been to Israel, and what a comfort it is to us today. And of course, this side of the cross, we know that the one who brings God's kingdom is Jesus Christ himself. In his first coming, he inaugurated it. In his second coming, he will consummate it. So when we say God's kingdom is on its way, that means that the kingdom of Jesus Christ is on its way. In Luke chapter 20, Jesus tells the parable of the tenants. The parable of the tenants, you recall. It's this parable about how those who oppose God and God's rule will eventually be killed. At the end of that parable, Jesus pictures himself as the rock, as the stone, the one from King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Just have a listen to this from Luke 20, verse 18. Jesus says, "Everyone who falls on that stone will be broken to pieces," which is a quote from a psalm. But then, a quote from Daniel 2, "Anyone on whom it falls will be crushed." Anyone on whom it falls will be crushed. The rock that crushed the human kingdoms in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the rock that became a huge mountain and filled the earth, it's Jesus. It's Jesus' kingdom. Which means that anyone who opposes Jesus, whether it's an ordinary Joe or whether it's a world leader, anyone who opposes Jesus will eventually be crushed. God's kingdom is on its way. The kingdom of Jesus Christ is on its way. What a comfort this is to anxious souls. What a comfort it is to know that the things that are causing us worry now, the things that are causing us anxiety now, whether it's oppressive governments around the world, whether it's people in our lives treating us badly, whether it's the pandemic that's causing us to be so anxious, what a comfort it is to know that all of these things won't last. Jesus, the rock, he's going to put an end to all that trouble and he's going to establish his perfect everlasting kingdom. The kingdom of Jesus is on its way. Well, it's time to bring all this together. Our question, how does God soothe our anxious souls? Seen two answers. One, he reveals life's mysteries. And two, he rules. His kingdom is on its way. How does this help me tonight when I'm lying in bed worrying about life's mysteries? How does this help you tomorrow when you find yourself cycling through your list of worries, assignments, lockdown, relationships, ministry, finances? What it means is that we don't have to fear. We don't have to worry. It means that we can turn to God who reveals life's mysteries to us. It means that we can find peace in the midst of our troubles, knowing that he rules, knowing that his kingdom is on its way. He rules and he reveals. Now, this doesn't mean that he's going to reveal every detail about life that we might want to know, or that he'll necessarily take the problems away that we're worrying about. I don't think any of us do know, or he's revealed to us when COVID will end, and he certainly won't spare us from all of its effects and impacts. But what he has done is he's revealed to us that these problems won't be our problems forever, that his kingdom is on its way, and so we don't need to be anxious. We don't need to fear. Jesus sums it all up in one beautiful sentence from Luke chapter 12. "Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom." Are you worried about COVID? Don't be afraid. Are you worried about relationships? Don't be afraid. Are you worried about your health, your ministry, your life? Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Let's pray. Dear Father God, we thank you. We thank you that you reveal life's mysteries to us. We thank you that you rule and that your kingdom is on its way. Help us not to be anxious or afraid, but instead to listen to you and to wait in hope for your kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.